Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrew Hasty, Senior Advisor with the Office of Labor Management Standards at the U.S. Department of Labor. I'm excited to be here today as your host. And a sincere thank you for all of you joining us from across the country. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you to this extraordinary occasion, the power of partnerships. This roundtable event features a gathering of industry leaders unified by the shared belief in the transformative power of collaboration to achieve mutually beneficial outcomes. The power of partnerships is more than a theme. It's a reflection of a collective vision at the Labor Department and how labor management partnerships can be the gold standard for meeting employer needs and training diverse workers. Today, we bring together innovative thinkers and collaborators from a diverse set of industries to explore the role of employee engagement in fostering innovative best practices and models that directly contribute to employers' strategic objectives. We'll be taking a deep dive into the mutual benefits of these alliances that not only enhance productivity, but also instill work with a deeper sense of purpose. I'm so excited to bring you such a great lineup today. For the next hour and a half, we'll be making some exciting introductory remarks, followed by a short video. After that, we'll move on to the featured portion of our event, which is the moderated roundtable panel discussion featuring our distinguished guests. The discussion will conclude with a Q&A session where you can ask your questions using the WebEx Q&A feature. I now have the distinct pleasure of introducing our first speaker, the Director of the Office of Labor Management Standards, Jeffrey Freund. He has been appointed as the Director of OLMS in January of 2021, and whose vision has helped lead us here today. Please welcome to the podium, Jeff Freund.
Thanks, Andrew, and good afternoon and welcome to everyone who's assembled. I'm Jeff Freund, Director of the Office of Labor Management Standards. Thanks for being part of this momentous event. As Andrew said, we are here today to celebrate the Labor Management Partnership Program, an initiative OLMS dedicated to reshaping the landscape of labor management interactions and strengthening our shared goal of advancing the interests of both the American company and the American worker. A sense of shared history underpins our gathering today. The National Labor Relations Act in 1935, and later the Labor Management Reporting and Disclosure Act, expressed a robust endorsement and indeed a stated national policy of workers' freedom to organize, select their own representatives, and collectively bargain for their terms and conditions of employment. These principles serve as the foundation of our vision, shaping our commitment to fostering transparency, protecting workers' rights, and promoting democratic standards within labor organizations so they can advance this national policy favoring collective bargaining. This commitment, upheld by the Office of Labor Management Standards, is reflected in our work. OLMS has been instrumental in safeguarding union transparency and democratic processes and ensuring that labor unions function in the best interest of their members. And the results of our work are informative. The vast, overwhelming majority of unions and union officers and employees perform their work selflessly and with the sole objective of advancing their members' employment rights and benefits. And the vast majority of employers with unionized workforces have found that profits and worker satisfaction through a fair and respectful relationship with their employees' unions go hand in hand. But let's fast forward to today. President Biden's historic Investing in America agenda is bringing $2 trillion in federal investments to communities across the country through the bipartisan infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, and the Inflation Reduction Act. Under the leadership of Acting Secretary Julie Su, the DOL is bringing the full breadth of our expertise and resources to maximize this once-in-a-generation opportunity to create good, worker-friendly and union-friendly jobs in infrastructure, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, and to make sure that all Americans, including workers from communities that have historically been shut out of economic opportunity, have equitable access to these jobs. Her vision for investing in America workforce implementation includes a concerted focus on building, expanding, and scaling sector-based labor management partnerships. A critical component essential to the effectiveness of labor management partnerships is that labor is meaningfully engaged from the beginning. Those high-road employers uniting with their workforces are seeing the results: increased hiring capacity and reduced employee turnover, which in turn improves enterprise productivity and profit. The realities of labor shortages and the need for improved job quality are ushering in a fresh perspective: OLMS's Labor Management Partnership Program. This initiative is inspiring employers and workers alike to come together to resolve organizational issues while simultaneously enhancing job quality and productivity. We are focused on models where employers and union workers, through a collective bargaining agreement or otherwise, develop relationships that result in mutually beneficial outcomes. Our vision, steeped in the principles of the worker voice and collective bargaining, calls for labor management partnerships marked by trust, cooperation, shared goals, and shared decision-making. Through this, we aim to foster an environment of trust and cooperation that propels the collective growth of our country's workers and employers. So how is the Department of Labor delivering on its mission to unite employers and workers? First, we are identifying and showcasing examples of successful labor management cooperation to serve as models for others to follow. Next, we are serving as a leading resource for labor management partnership activities. We are underscoring the benefits of these partnerships through dedicated research and advocacy. And finally, we are ensuring workers and employers are well-versed about labor rights. As we ignite today's roundtable discussion, The Power of Partnerships, I invite each of you to join in this conversation about the transformative power of these partnerships. Let's dive into how they can drive innovation, add meaning to work, and ultimately lead to superior outcomes for workers and employers alike. And let's embrace a future where employers and workers come together to solve problems, improve morale, and create superior products and services. With your engagement and support, we have the potential to change the narrative of labor management interactions. We have the opportunity to shape a new world of work, one marked by unity, shared goals, and mutual successes. We hope today's event will be illuminating and inspiring regarding our collective vision for the future of labor management partnerships. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to working with you and others to advance this vision.
Thank you, Director Freund, for those inspiring remarks and showing us how labor management partnerships are good, not only for companies, but workers and the communities that they serve. Next, I would like to introduce the Labor Management Partnership Coordinator for the Labor Management Partnership Program at OLMS, Darnice Marsh. Darnice has over 20 years of experience in both labor and management roles and knows what it takes to harness the power of partnership. Please welcome to the podium, Darnice Marsh.
Thank you, Andrew, for the introduction. I'm so excited today because we get to talk about something that I'm very passionate about, the power of partnerships. We have an excellent panel of subject matter experts that are going to share some best practices with building and sustaining labor management partnerships from various industries. But before we get to the main course, our distinguished panel members, we have an excellent appetizer in the form of a video that details the benefits of labor management partnerships and how those partnerships are mutually beneficial for both workers and employers. Hi, I'm Darnice Marsh.
And I'm Andrew Hasty. We're with the U.S. Department of Labor.
And we'd like to talk to you about labor management partnerships.
What happens when two groups align for mutual gain? This is the essence of a labor management partnership. But what does that mean, and why does it matter?
On one side, we have workers on the front line providing essential services for an organization. And on the other, management overseeing business operations.
A labor management partnership forms a bridge between them. It's a collaborative effort focused on common goals. It's a relationship with a unified mission, improving organizational performance and employee well-being.
Let's take a closer look at how labor management partnerships benefit both workers and employers, and why you should consider starting one at your workplace.
When labor and management work together, they can create innovative solutions to workplace challenges.
This can lead to better problem solving, shared decision making, and the potential for workplace innovation, leading to better results. Research shows that these partnerships yield substantial benefits, including higher employee morale and job satisfaction, customer satisfaction, and overall system performance.
Labor management partnerships create a pathway to sustainable, cooperative success. For organizations striving for excellence, a productive relationship between labor and management isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. From healthcare to public transportation, manufacturing to hospitality, from public education to construction, labor management partnerships have proven to be beneficial to workers and employers.
And remember, when labor and management work as partners, the outcomes are mutually beneficial. This is the power of labor management partnerships. Now that we've had our appetizer, I hope you enjoyed it. The video is a preview into the great conversation we're going to have centered on the power of partnerships. Now it's time to meet our moderator and panelists for the day. Our moderator is Mr. Javier Ramirez. Javier began his career as a commissioner with the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Services, FMCS, in 2005. He is currently a member of the United States Senior Executive Service Staff as the Deputy Director of Field Operations for FMCS. President Biden nominated Mr. Ramirez to be the 20th Director of FMCS in June 2021. Javier is no stranger to mediating disputes. He has mediated in nearly all sectors of the economy: performing arts, public safety, public education, hospitality, healthcare, and manufacturing. I could go on, but I think you can see why we chose him as the moderator and why we are so fortunate to have him with us today. Not only does Mr. Ramirez serve as the leader of all the federal mediators in the United States, he is known on the international scene too. While he has a full plate, in his off time, Mr. Ramirez enjoys the performing arts or exploring the great outdoors with his wife and 2 adult children. Mr. Ramirez, thank you for being here with us today. Now it's time to meet the Power of Partnerships panel extraordinaire. We selected panel members from various industries to ensure there is a diverse representation of labor management partnerships. Mr. Peter Lazis is an author, director, academic, co-coordinator, and advocate for labor management partnerships. In November 2020, Mr. Lazis and his wife authored the book, From the Ground Up: How Frontline Staff Can Save America's Healthcare. Prior to authoring this publication, Peter served as the founder and director of the Healthcare Transformation Project at Cornell University's School of Industrial and Labor Relations. Most recently, Peter is a visiting professor and co-coordinator of the Healthcare Labor Management Partnership Initiative at Penn State University School of Labor and Employment Relations. Next, we have Jermaine G. Gibson. Anyone who knows Jermaine knows that we call him G. So that's how I'm going to introduce him to you. G is an expert in all things workforce development, apprenticeships, and taking labor management partnerships on the road all across the nation to different local affiliates. You see, when I say G takes labor management partnerships on the road, that's what I mean in a literal sense. G works for the Amalgamated Transit Union, also known as ATU. He stays busy as he can be credited with helping to build and sustain labor management partnerships in over 40 local affiliates. Along with G, we have from the management representative from Indigo, Denise Agar Jenkins. Denise is the Chief People Officer for Indigo, and I'm sure once you hear from her, you will see why she deserves that title. Denise has been with Indigo since 2020, and she brings more than 25 years of experience in human resources and learning and organizational development. In her brief time at Indigo, Denise has managed to create and grow the first Department of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, launch a nationally recognized mentor and apprenticeship program, and streamline the Department of People and Teammate experience, processes, and procedures. Now, I told you this is the main course, but don't get too full just yet. We have two more additions to this full, satisfying course. Stephen Johnson is also here with us today, and he is a proven expert and success-oriented leader in delivering excellence through program and curriculum development and innovative learning strategies as the administrator for District Council 37's Education Fund. He has over 20 years of experience in career and workforce development. He is passionate about the work of the Education Fund, which has worked to provide education and training to help expand the academic and career pathways for the 150,000 plus members of District 37, the largest municipal union in the country. Last, and certainly not least, we have Bob Jacoby here with us today. Mr. Jacoby doesn't know this, but Andrew Hasty and I have nicknamed him. We affectionately refer to him as Bad Bob Jacoby. Once I introduce him, you will see why. Mr. Jacoby is the executive director for the Labor Management Council of Greater Kansas City. In addition, he is an adjunct faculty member at Rockhurst University, where the Labor Management Council is located. Bob has been involved in the labor management community for over 40 years, working to negotiate contracts from both sides of the table. Now you see why we call him Bad Bob. Mr. Jacoby is a published author, with his works being published in more than 25 national, regional, and local publications. So now, without further ado, Mr. Ramirez, I virtually pass the baton to you. Let the power of partnerships roundtable discussion begin.
Thanks, Darnice, and thanks for that energy. And Andrew, thank you. I want to start with thanking Director Freund and the Office of Labor Management and Standards staff for putting on this event. I know how complex these events are, so I really appreciate you taking this on. I've worked on all sides of the labor management community and have seen the benefits of partnerships from the labor side, the management side, and as a neutral. and I've also seen the struggles with them. So I want to take advantage of the diversity of experiences of this panel and have them share those experiences around partnering, both the benefits and challenges. If we have time, we'd like to take some questions for you if we get the Q&A box up and running. And I also want to thank the folks. I see that quite a few folks have logged on and stayed on. So I want to start with Peter last. You get the first question here, Peter. You've worn a lot of different hats and held responsibilities, all with the focus on labor management partnerships. From that perspective, can you briefly state what does labor management partnerships mean to you, and how they've been beneficial to frontline staff?
Well, thank you all, particularly Javier and Jeff, for inviting me on this important panel. So what it means to me is that labor management processes or worker participation has focused on improving working conditions of staff, improving patient care in the healthcare sector, and in other parts of our economy. What I have seen is when it works, it is a structured process so that labor and management are brought together to create activities, not just management, but labor and management, that have a direct role in improving working conditions of employees, improving the productivity of organizations, look at the best use of technology, which is becoming more and more important, and in terms of healthcare, improve access and quality of care. Javier, I just want to comment that I might add that labor management partnerships is something new. It was started after World War II by key union leaders in the UAW to improve working conditions of members between contracts. And over the years, it has been a key tool to improving our economy. UAW leadership saw the role of unions was to protect the role of workers, but also to give them the direct role of improving our economy and acknowledging their role in the process. Both goals are still important to the UAW. I have seen over the years that authentic labor management partnerships has always benefited the frontline staff in a very basic way, because these activities result in respecting the knowledge and skill of workers, frontline staff, by listening and implementing their ideas. Whether it's an environmental service employee or a doctor or nurse, an assembly line worker or a die maker in an automobile manufacturing plant, they have a direct role. I just want to end with saying that the results are pretty impressive. In general, the video talked about it, but I want to drill down more. It's a union building strategy as well as an economic strategy. For unions, this has increased more active stewards. 262% we have measured in one of the sites that we worked in. Political action has increased 49%. PAC contributions have increased 45%. And for management or for the organization, it's common to get 25 to 40% improvements in quality, access to care, and productivity. I'll just end with one last point, Javier. I see the labor management process, worker participation, has not been just a benefit, but it has been a critical tool for union and management to enable labor and management to find appropriate solutions to problems, to working conditions, new technology, and shifts in regulation between contracts. This does not take away from the rights of labor and management, but adds to their toolkit. And it results in employees having more beneficial work, management achieving important productivity objectives, and finding solutions before they become a crisis between labor and management.
Great. Thank you, Peter.
I hope that was helpful, Javier.
Yeah, it is. The thing that I found interesting there is that you said that they've been around for a while, at least 75 years, if I did the math really quick there. And it just seems like they ebb and flow. You know, there's times where they're more prominent, and then times not so much.
Everyone, this
So
is Kevin from the WebEx. We're
later
having
on, I
technical
hope to hear from
issues.
you.
Can I have
Hopefully we have some time.
someone else try to speak?
Well, I'm sorry, Kevin. Could you mute your mic for us? But Peter, I hope we have a little bit of time later on to hear about some sustainability on that. So for now,
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Peter. So the next question is for G. You have experiences with labor management partnerships at a local, regional, and now international union perspective. So what does labor management partnership mean for the transit industry, and how does it benefit ATU members?
Yes, can you hear me, Javier?
Yes.
Good. I wanted to first say thank you, and thank you to the DOL for putting this on. I will say that what we've seen is that having labor management partnerships gives us a different way of looking at how can we address workforce issues with labor and the transit agency working together. This hasn't, or you would assume with an industry that has been around as long as public transit has, it would be natural for the two main partners in this industry to work together, but it hasn't always been that way. I will say from a union standpoint, we haven't always looked or seen ourselves as having a role in developing the current workforce and looking toward the future. And currently under our international president, Mr. John Costa, he has made it a goal of the international and a goal of the ATU to really work together with transit agencies to figure out how can we address labor shortages, how can we address getting ready to transition over to zero emission technology, and how can we address those things working together. I would just like to point out a big part of what we're doing is actually coming from a labor management partnership that started back in 2005 in San Jose between Santa Clara Valley Transit Authority and my local 265. With the help of Ms. Deb Moy, who is from Balance Point, they were able to come together and create a labor management partnership that is now benefiting public transit across the U.S. and across Canada. So it's really for our members. I think Peter just nailed on it. It really gives us a chance to elevate our members' voices into the process of developing training programs that's going to benefit them and future members in the future.
Great, thanks, G. It's really nice to hear too that you're not just dealing with minor issues. Those are issues of substance that you laid out there that you're dealing with. So that's nice to hear. And I want to go to Denise. And Denise, first of all, thank you for being a problem solver and figuring out the tech and a way to be with us here today. I know that you're having some technical issues there, but can you elaborate on what labor management partnership means to you from the management perspective? And if I may be presumptuous, how has it enhanced business operations and performance?
Well, hello, everyone. I hope I am speaking through my phone today versus my computer. But thank you for this opportunity to just really share my perspective as an executive. Again, my name is Denise Jenkins-Agers, and based on, it's all about partnership. This is, to be all transparent, this is my first time ever working with a union coming to Indigo. And one thing I had heard in the past that unions are very scary, right? But my perspective is just a little bit different because of collaboration. When you think about it, we are all one team, regardless if we're on the union side or if we're on the agency side. And because of the partnership that we have with our local ATU, along with working with G, who is amazing, we have partnered to develop some great programming that helps everyone at Indigo, not just on our union side, not just on our agency side, but everybody benefits from teammate engagement. Everyone benefits with, we're getting ready to roll out a sign-on bonus program for our coach operators and our mechanics. We are going to be doing sign-on bonuses. So it's a way of being, it's teammate engagement. It's all about teammate engagement and how we can deliver the best culture here at Indigo and play well in the sandbox together because we are one team. at the end of the day. And I hope I answered your question because something popped up on my phone and I lost my train of thought and trying to talk to you at the same time.
No, you're good, Denise. We did lose your video, but the audio was still coming in clear. So thank you. And well, how lucky for you that you've had your first experience with the union is in a collaborative setting. Unfortunately, I think a lot of folks are not able to start their experiences that way. So good on you for that. So my next question is for Stephen. As a fund administrator for education and training initiatives, you work with people from disadvantaged communities, individuals with disabilities, and recently incarcerated individuals looking to gain new skills. How have labor management partnerships been beneficial to those groups?
Thank you, Javier. Good afternoon, everyone. Can I be heard clearly? Just want to make sure.
Yes. Thank you.
And again, just want to thank Andrew and Darnice for the invitation and the opportunity to speak here today. So I'd say that these partnerships have been beneficial by forcing both labor and management to do a deep and thorough needs assessment of what kind of worker the city of New York requires to move the city forward, and then a capabilities assessment of what both DC 37 and the city are currently able to do to help these members or help these workers and what gaps we need to fill. So part of the needs assessment involves identifying the current vacancies that exist in New York, which have been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic, as well as an increase in the number of early retirements by city workers, as well as the barriers to work and training that these workers encounter. For example, high transportation costs, lack of affordable and available childcare, and other education requirements like their GED, college credits, or a college diploma, as well as qualifications for civil service examinations. In terms of assessing our current capabilities, it requires taking a hard look at our current workforce development and training model and determining if our programmatic and training strategy matches the requirements for city employment, and where they don't, filling those gaps through outreach, academic and training partnerships, and even collective bargaining between DC 37 and the city of New York. An example of this is our Green Jobs Training Initiative, which is a grant-funded training program to provide New York City's workforce with green energy and economy-specific training, licensing, and certification. This is focused on recruiting and training specific priority population workers, such as those from single-parent households, veterans of the military, low income, currently underemployed or homeless, as well as those workers who may live in an environmental justice zone, which is defined as a community that bears the extreme burdens of negative public health effects, environmental pollution, and impacts of climate change. With the support of the City of New York, a major goal of this initiative is to ensure that these communities benefit the most from the city's transition to greener sources of energy, reduced pollution, cleaner air, and economic opportunities as a result of being upskilled through training.
Well, Stephen, that's fascinating. It's really nice to hear the times you hear of investing in America or other big initiatives by an administration. And I think that what you just shared with us is an example of how that translates to local communities and how it's benefiting local communities. So that's really nice to hear. Thank you, Stephen. Bob, you oversee the council, which represents a diverse group of companies and unions that employ, build, and train the Kansas City workforce. From that unique vantage point, how has connecting labor and management benefited the community? Bob, you're still muted. There you go.
First, thanks to Denise and Andrew for bringing us into this program and for the excellent work they're doing on labor management partnerships. And to you, Javier, the FMCS has been a great partner to us over the many years, and we appreciate that very much. A great help. I think there's a number of ways that labor management partnerships help the community. First of all, if you can decrease the number of strikes, lockouts, and disruptions, that decreases the harm to the local community's economies and other aspects in the community. So that's a benefit of itself. It also makes the local communities more competitive. Local companies, workers, greater labor management cooperation really does help make companies more competitive and makes the communities as a whole more competitive. You also have more resources that can be concentrated towards community issues when labor management can work together on those problems. Finally, I think a big benefit is it just increases the overall cooperative spirit in the community. Makes the community more willing and able and understanding how you solve problems together as opposed to conflict. When the LMC was founded in the 1970s, Kansas City had a lot of labor disruption. Every major project pretty much had strikes in construction, but it was all through the economy, public sector, manufacturing, et cetera. It was very hard to get folks to invest in the community. Companies didn't want to build or grow here because of that. Since the LMC was founded and has been able to work for a number of years, we've been able to have an impact, I think, and the fact we've had several multi-billion-dollar projects and many of the larger significant ones that have gone with no strikes, no disruptions. We've had a growth in our manufacturing sector over the years, in part because folks perceive the workforce as being a very strong workforce. They like the labor management cooperation that we've been able to instill. Recently, Kansas City just built a new airport, very important project for the community. We got the folks together early on. Obviously, any project like that, there's always conflicts and there's drama, but everybody understood the cooperative spirit that we tried to instill over the years, and we resulted in a project that got done ahead of schedule and on budget, which is nice for a $1.5 billion project. And it's particularly important to the community because a couple months after the airport opened, Kansas City hosted the NFL draft. In a few years, we're hosting the World Cup, and it really helped put us on the map. And having that labor management cooperation make that project successful really made a big difference to the city as a whole. So another quick example, homelessness and particularly problems for veterans, big issue in the community. Labor management both identified there were issues there and worked with a local group of volunteers to build small homes for transition for veterans who've been houseless. So all kinds of projects like that in the community that take place that simply could not happen without labor management cooperation.
Great. Thank you, Bob. Those are big dollars and great jobs that you're talking about for the community. And since 1970, I'm definitely going to circle back to you on some of that sustainability, see if you could give us that secret sauce for keeping it together for so long.
Absolutely.
So, Peter, back to you. And this question could be a big one, but can you give us a high level view of the role of labor management partnerships in addressing pivotal health concerns around recent challenges in the healthcare industry, such as employee burnout and staffing shortages? And Peter, you're muted.
Wanted to share with you, the partnerships in healthcare have been really impressive over the years, and particularly right now, in terms of burnout. And another category, Javier, is called moral injury, where people are feeling that they're doing things that are against their values and ethics. And that has been really a big problem during the recent pandemic. And the worker participation, labor management partnerships, healthcare have been really focused, therefore, on changing working conditions, not giving people massages and having a few days off, but really dealing with the day-to-day problems that are forcing staff to leave in droves. It's not just burnout, it's the issue of feeling like you are not able to do what you've been trained to do. And I'm talking about from environmental service employees. I want to cite two examples of this. It's not just in general. The Department of Health Services in Los Angeles and UMass Memorial Health Center in Worcester, Mass. have had labor management partnerships for quite a while. And as a result of that, they have been able to give frontline staff, I want to be real specific here, frontline staff are given time off their job to solve the problems that affect working conditions, and now have shifted to other areas such as workarounds where staff do things to get things done, but they're not the right procedure. Having better access to equipment, that was a real big problem during the pandemic. and reducing important issues around patient care, wait times, having a role in the use of technology, not just by management deciding, but by union. I want to end this little answer by saying that during the pandemic, what was so interesting, Javier, is that those hospitals that had a structure of labor management partnerships, worker participation, where workers were given time off the job to work on things that were important to them, that those were the hospitals that found solutions to making sure they had safe and appropriate personal protective equipment. And that as the pandemic got more intense and people needed to be moved, that was done in a very coordinated fashion. We have tracked this with other hospitals, and we've seen in the news how bad hospital workers, what they faced. I have to say that it's been the structure, the underpinning of the partnership that has enabled those patients to be seen in a better way and staff to have better working conditions. So in summary, I would say that labor management partnerships work in each sector differently, but in healthcare, they've been critical in terms of current conditions and the potential of the future of really having better use of the new technologies that will be coming in.
Great. Thank you, Peter. We were definitely dealing with some unprecedented circumstances over the last few years, specifically in the healthcare industry. And so to hear that getting the frontline perspective would be beneficial when dealing with those issues is nice to hear. And I learned something new today. First time I heard the term moral injury. It's fascinating. I'm not going to get into that because I could. That's a rabbit hole. I'm trying to prevent myself from going down rabbit holes today. but thank you, Peter.
We can get back to that. I just like to clarify. It's a distinction. Burnout has a sense that you're blaming the staff for not being strong enough. It's sort of like they can't take it. Whereas we've been dealing with unions around this whole issue and management, when you look at that, that's not the issue. The working conditions have been bad. That's not about burnout and not being strong enough. It has to do with the fact that their working conditions, and then the solutions become more appropriate to dealing with that. Let me just add one other thing that I forgot to mention. Recruitment and retention has been improved in those hospitals that have partnerships. And we've heard how the droves of healthcare workers are leaving for all kinds of reasons. These hospitals are figuring out appropriate solutions to it. And really it comes back again to working conditions, having better equipment, being informed about changes before they happen. These are areas where recruitment and retention have really panned out and
yeah, those retention is everyone's trying to figure out. I'm hearing a little bit of echo. I'm not sure if I'm trying to help something with that. So thank you, Peter. Denise, there's been discussions around the evolution of the transit industry. Those discussions focus on safety, recruitment and retention, and the transition to zero vehicles. Just to name a few. How are labor management partnerships used to meet these rising challenges? And I would ask that if anyone speaking, just put yourself on mute.
I believe I heard you was a huge echo, but as far as the recruitment because we're all dealing with it, one of the things that we're doing that I'm very proud of is that we received a grant. We received a grant that will allow us to hire a community recruiter manager. And their whole focus is not to sit at their desk, it's to get out in the community. We had a major meeting with all of the community partners that came to the agency, and we talked about collaboration and how they can assist us with our hiring needs. So we are very intentional about making sure we partner with those community agencies by having a dedicated person to assist us with all of our recruiting needs, attending job fairs, going directly to the agency and having information sessions on how those individuals can be teammates of Indigo. So that is just one of the creative ways for us to really assist with our hiring needs. We're making it intentional by hiring a person, and their sole job is to get out there in the community. The other thing is we have someone on board. We have an onboarding specialist, excuse me, an onboarding coordinator, and her role is to work with second chance programs. So with the community recruiter and her efforts, I believe that we can truly make some major headway with our recruiting efforts. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, and those initiatives came out of the labor management forums?
It was actually a conversation about how can we get more coach operators and mechanics by partnerships. So by going out to those agencies that veteran services, they were at the table. How can we hire veterans? We're partnered with our community college, partnering with those students, letting those students that are in the maintenance program know that we have an apprenticeship program here at Indigo that is very successful. We started the conversation last year, and G said that we have been making serious headway within the year by getting individuals in the Indigo to be an apprentice in our maintenance program.
Great. That sounds like great work. Thank you, Denise. G, same question for you, but from the union's perspective.
Yeah, quick one before I answer it. Whoever, Kevin, on your side, you're going to have to hit mute because it's giving a huge echo to us as the panelists and to the people who's on the webinar.
Yeah.
So just to follow up on Denise's question or Denise's answer, one, I want to thank Denise for being on, for being a partner in this. And I think this is also what has developed from these labor management partnerships is a true partner. And Denise is a great partner to have. I will say from the standpoint of using Indigo's program as a prime example, when we started this a year and a half ago, it was very intentional on Local 1070 and Indigo sitting down and saying, what are the workforce challenges and how can we address those challenges together? One of the biggest things that we first focused on in our industry, if you're not familiar with public transit, it is a very much burn and turn industry. We hire people in. If we hire 100 people, we're lucky if we keep 50% of them at the end of the year. And so what we've been doing with these labor management partnerships is creating mentor programs jointly ran to where we're giving the support to operators and mechanics when they come in. And so what we were able to do with a different partnership, I mentioned VTA earlier, they were able to go from 50% all the way up to 95% in retention. At Indigo, we're still waiting to do the numbers, but the first piece is we wanted to give a support system to new people coming in. That leads to how do you recruit people into an industry? One of the things that I always like to say is that why are we bringing people into a broken system? And so when you have a labor management partnership that is really intentional on surrounding those new members with the services that they need, like mentors who can help them cope with the job, who can help them understand, how this industry works, it gives you a higher chance of retaining them. But it is also a tool you can use to recruit. One of the things I'm very proud of at Indigo is just last week, they were just approved for their coach operator apprenticeship program. This is something that also came out of VTA as well. They are the 6th program in the country where we're recognizing operators as a profession. And so not only are we giving them the skills to learn how to drive a commercial vehicle, and then we're partnering with a mentor, but that national credential, or possibly in Indigo's case, that being able to give college credit to be an operator or to be a mechanic, because their mechanic program is also apprenticeship, is a huge recruitment tool for young people. In our industry, public transit, I think I looked at the statistics from 2021, less than 5% of our industry is between the age of 18 and 24. And so when you start looking at what we're doing with apprenticeships and what we're doing to promote those apprenticeship programs, it's a way of us being able to attract people, retain them, And at the center of all this, this is all being created jointly. It's not being done by the union. It's not being done by the agency. This is a joint effort around workforce development in public transit.
Yeah, gee, that's all fascinating stuff. And one of the things that I'm hearing that I think that some folks that haven't experienced partnerships is that I'm hearing that you are establishing a number of different partnerships depending on what the issue is, where some folks believe that this partnership is one team that's tackling all the problems. But what I'm hearing is that you have different ones depending on what the issue is.
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the things that I'll point to Peter, because Peter says a lot of things that I'm going to say. One of the things is we are intentional on making sure that this partnership is only focused on the labor management. There's all other kind of partnerships, safety, and the things that go along with the CBA and all that. But what we work on is only around workforce development. And we're keeping this partnership focused on how can we move forward together in this space.
Excellent. Good work. Stephen, you talked about the Green Jobs. So how is the Green Jobs Initiative, a labor management partnership between D37 and New York City, work to bridge the gap in the labor market with agencies trying to fill positions requiring their employees to have green skills?
Yes. So, our Green Jobs Training Initiative was actually born out of our prior mayor, that's Mayor Bill de Blasio's Green New Deal, which is a commitment to drastically cut citywide climate emissions while advancing carbon neutrality, specifically to achieve a 20% reduction in building energy consumption by 2030, convert more building heating to electric power, and expand solar installations on city properties. I also want to mention that most jobs within New York City government fall under the competitive class of civil service law. So meaning that these positions utilize an exam to determine an applicant's merit and/or fitness for the job. So I say all this because from DC 37's perspective, we saw this as an opportunity to partner with the city to both provide our union membership with training in the green energy sector, while also giving the city of New York a highly trained and skilled workforce in the green economy. Additionally, this training program serves as a bridge in labor market demand from city agencies specifically trying to fill positions and the civil service testing mechanism used to recruit and fill these positions. The Green Job Initiative's primary focus was and is to introduce our membership to fundamental and advanced study in areas such as renewable energy, green technology, building sciences, energy conservation, and environmental engineering. All areas the city of New York both needs its workers to be trained in and are actively recruiting for through the requirements for current and upcoming civil service exams. One example of the need for this training has been the COVID pandemic, which shed light on the importance of building air quality, and incorporating training on improving air quality in residential and commercial buildings in the city of New York has become a staple of the Green Jobs Training Initiative.
It sounds like you're tackling one of the biggest problems that we're hearing out there around recruiting and retention. But you hear about people that they don't want to work or unemployment or they're having difficulty finding employees for the jobs. They're there, the workers are there, but sometimes they need just that little bit of training or upskilling. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing with this initiative, is to find the people that need the work in the area, give them the skills, and then put them to work.
That's exactly it. Absolutely.
Excellent. So, Bob, there's probably some tips there for you, but in the Kansas City region, once again, it's a thriving area capable of big projects and innovative startups. Specifically, your efforts focus on workforce and economic development that is beneficial to both the employers and workers. Can you tell us more about how partnerships play a role in achieving results? And there you go.
Absolutely. Partnerships are critical to workforce development, particularly in construction, because apprenticeship programs are labor management oriented. And if you don't have good partnerships, you're not going to have strong apprenticeship programs, strong continuing training programs for the future. So in Kansas City, we've really focused on trying to expand the workforce in terms of diversity. One, that's where the workforce is, frankly, and also there's a sense of wanting, and this is both a labor and management concern, more social justice in the community. The airport project I mentioned earlier, we developed a significant workforce development program on it that did very extensive outreach to underserved parts of the community and recruited folks in, gave them pre-apprenticeship training so that they're prepared to get into apprenticeship programs. And those that were able to get in had guaranteed jobs, either on the airport project or on other projects that those contractors had available. So that partnership between not just labor and management, but in this case, the community as well, was critical. One thing we found is that when you're doing either economic or workforce development, elected officials really appreciate when they can see labor management cooperation going on, because it makes it easier for them to make these projects possible. We've been very involved in a number of different approaches to workforce development over the years. There's a program that we kind of helped rescue about 20 years ago, and now is a very viable program, National Institute for Construction Excellence, although its focus is mostly local. And it has a curriculum for middle school development and construction. We have a major career fair for middle and high school students, where they come and see the industry with all kinds of examples and hands-on exposure to the industry. A number of other programs that we're very engaged in. And again, educators are a critical portion of workforce development, because the more the education systems can prepare their students to fit into what we need as employers and unions, the easier our job is, as well as we need access to those students to help recruit them. So again, the labor management aspect of it is very attractive to educators and has been a big part of our ability to try and improve our recruitment of new folks into the industry.
Educators and investors. So it sounds like the
Absolutely.
partnerships or the less likelihood of disruption is attractive to investors. That's going to help recruit dollars and projects.
You bet, absolutely. It makes a difference in how they look at a community and how they look at specific workforce in that community.
Excellent. Thank you, Bob. So Peter, back to you. And I had mentioned that I wanted to come back to you on some of the sustainability, so I'm glad that we have some time to do this. But as an industry-leading researcher on labor management partnerships in healthcare, you've recognized that one of the biggest hurdles to their vitality is the ability to sustain them long-term. So how have you seen partnerships stand the test of time, and what advice can you offer the audience who may want to start up their own partnership?
Okay, so let me tackle those two questions. And I also want to add that I appreciate Andrew and Denise's invite to this. I forgot to mention that in the beginning. I'll start with saying that one of the key ways of sustaining it, and Steve kind of snuck this in without it being that specific, unions need to broaden their knowledge of the industry. That's not something that's common in U.S. Unions. It's very common in European unions. And Steve was very articulate about green jobs and whatnot in New York City. But I think that's a very significant issue about sustainability. Unions need to shift, add to, rather than shift, add to their repertoire by understanding what their workers are dealing with, so that their workers can have a voice in the future of technology, the future of where in healthcare, where changes are going. I had the great experience of working with the Saturn, not the planet, but the automobile company. And the union was more knowledgeable how to produce cars than the management. They studied it. They went abroad. And that's the kind of work that I hear Steve talking about. So one of the key critical issues to me is that unions have to shift and broaden their ability to know the workplace, not just to represent workers, and that's important when there are issues of grievances and inappropriate behavior, but really understanding the industry. Without that, the labor management partnerships flounder. The second component that I would say is that leadership is critical. I'm going to talk about, 5 critical processes, but without leadership, without the Steves, the Gs, at Saturn, it was Mike Bennett. Without key union and management leadership that have a vision that working together is better than working against each other, the structures don't hold up. So you need to have leadership, and I'll get back to that. That being said, here are just 5 areas that I've experienced both as a practitioner of implementing labor management partnerships, not just looking at them. One is there has to be clear contract language or a sidebar agreement about the goals and activities of labor management partnerships. In some ways, that has to be developed. Between contracts, a sidebar agreement is surely possible. What are the goals? There needs to be a structure. Even with the other panelists, there have been structures to guide the process and support it, particularly when you're dealing with quality improvement, productivity improvement in an organization, kind of drilling down on a more micro level labor management process. There needs to be a structure for guiding the process and supporting it. This is a major shift for labor and management, so that I have seen the importance of having educational workshops for senior management, middle management, and union leaders to think about how their goals can be attained even better through this process, rather than transactional activity, which mainly takes place in the union management process. This still honors the collective bargaining agreement. It doesn't, override it. But there needs to be an educational process where the leadership starts thinking about these issues, not just 2 or 3 key leaders. The 4th key area is a budget for training, education, and problem solving. I mentioned that 2 examples of that in healthcare in terms of frontline staff involvement. They had to be off the job. There had to be money to backfill them in their jobs. And when we worked with Xerox or at the Saturn plant, the same thing was needed. People needed time to plan and develop solutions. And the last area, which to me is really important, we have to plan for the future. So you have to plan for future leaders to take over the role that the initial leaders have taken, have started. I would call succession planning. So those are the kind of 5, 6 to 7 areas. The most important, I think, are really the union broadening their role and key leadership. You asked the other question, Javier. I just want to quickly talk about it. How do you get things started?
Yeah.
So one is that we have seen that it's important to get an advisor to help you with labor management come together. I hear Steve being, being the advisor in Kansas City. Someone has to be helpful to create the space that labor and management can see some opportunities that they didn't see before. And someone, I would add to that, that person also needs to give the union the kind of confidence that the collective bargaining agreement will still be honored, but this is going beyond that. And for management on the other side, there needs to be a coach to help them understand that, maybe you can get to better solutions and still be recognized as a good leader. In fact, maybe recognized as a better leader because you're managing better. So the one critical factor for starting a process is finding a coach, a good mentor, or a rabbi in a certain sense. I mentioned it's critical that both labor and management have a way to prepare for these new roles. You just can't start a process or have a structure, those workshops that I mentioned. And then pulling it together is really important. A common practice is a retreat. Those were more common before the pandemic, but they're starting up again now, where you can drill down on the details of what's going to go on. What's our real goal? Where should we start? all of those decisions, how much decision making are we really willing to give frontline staff? Are we willing to? At Saturn, they had full decision making. They decided on the equipment that was going to be in the assembly plant. They even determined who was going to be dealers for the Saturn car. Obviously, each setting would set different parameters. Then the fourth area, getting to the six areas as quickly as I can, Javier, is to launch a few important projects. Important by the fact that people in the organization see it as being important. It's not like something to the side, oh, they just went off, that was easy to do. It's something that's really meaningful to them. Those teams are given support in terms of improving their problem-solving skills. In certain organizations like Xerox, they had to redesign work. They had to have time to do that, but they also needed the skills of how do you measure the improvements. The same thing was true at Maimonides Medical Center around improving environmental services. The fifth area is spreading the results. Once you get some successes, let's multiply that. So let's find some other areas that have similar problems or related problems, and let's implement them there through a joint process. And lastly, labor and management need to shift to sharing information in a timely fashion. What I mean by that is, and Steve, in some ways, talked about the reducing the strikes. These processes are pretty, what can I say, fragile at times in the beginning stages. If you have a disruption, some type of a new decision that management makes that come out of some cloud somewhere and no one knows about it, it disrupts the process. So there has to be a discipline between labor and management if this is to be successful, to share information in a timely fashion so that both parties can work on it and possibly resolve it before it's implemented. And surely that process will keep from disrupting the joint work. So those are my observations. I hope
Yeah,
that's
that was that's very helpful, Peter. Thank you so much. That was quite a bit there. And I'll tell you that there are a few things really popped out to me. I agree with you on the buy-in from the leadership, that they have to be educated so that they're buying in, as well as the communication. Many times we hear when we're helping parties with this is that folks don't even know what they do, what these committees do. And so if the successes are communicated, that's actually going to help with some of the retention. And that was the third thing that kind of really popped out at me was this intentional succession planning, so that you're sometimes you realize that you have to retrain everyone because the majority of the folks on there are new. And sometimes you just need to take that step back and to look at that and to make sure that everyone's up to speed.
Yeah, let me just say one other thing about that. There was a recent crisis at Kaiser, one of the longest living labor management partnerships in healthcare. And they didn't do that. They didn't do that succession planning, and they almost had a strike.
Mm-hmm.
And I mentioned this earlier, but I'll repeat it. This doesn't take away from the union needing at times to take political actions or, even, threaten a strike or implement a strike. And it doesn't take away from management disciplining employees. It tries to eliminate those areas of from the toolkit to reduce the number of the need for the use of those tools.
And so, Peter, you gave me a nice transition here to G, because you had mentioned Kaiser and some of the difficulties over there. When people think of partnerships, they usually put Kaiser up there towards the top as a model. But G, we all know that partnerships can have their ups and downs, and I'm sure that it can be said that you had those experiences as well. So not only from an international level, but from a local one as well. So how do you work past those differences to achieve results?
Great question. And I'm going to say one of the best things that could have happened when this started off in 2005, when Tom Fink, who was a board member, when he thought about creating this type of partnership, he went out and sought the services of a lady that I mentioned earlier by Deb Moy, who then and still now serves as our neutral third in that partnership. And I think that's been key in what we've tried to build in to all the partnerships moving forward, is having a neutral third party who, isn't on the side of either the labor or the management that can really help and guide us through when we get to those sticking points, right? Peter just nailed it. As much as we talk about labor management partnerships, and I talked about keeping them siloed, every now and then there are things that come up in other areas between management and labor that will sometimes pull the workforce development partnership into it. And so it's key having that neutral third party to be there to help you through those different pieces. Again, I love following Peter because he throws the alley oops, the retreats, and all those things are all things that we still do now in California with a group that Deb and her team leads called California Transit Works, CTW. And that's one of the things that we do with all our partnerships is I want to be very clear. The programs aren't the biggest piece. It's really the relationship and the health of the partnership that is going to determine how you move forward with these different programs. And so as we spread that from California and now we're looking at Oregon, when you talk about on a national level, it's good to see that the federal government is also seeing that support is needed. And so the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, has funded the Transit Workforce Center, TWC, who is there to help public transit agencies and their locals, or if they're not represented, to figure out how do they create these partnerships and then how do they maintain them. But I would say the key piece has been that neutral third. Unfortunately, but fortunately, right now, I serve in that role sometimes, even though I'm on the union piece. But it's key. It's keeping that relationship healthy.
All right, G, I'm going to take that alley-oop that you just gave me to remind folks that we are neutrals and that we can help out with that. So call up MCS if you're searching for that neutral. But you also mentioned the government resources, and the OLMS has resources on their website as well for you all to take advantage of. So I hope that you all do that. And so I'm gonna ask Denise, because I'm sure that she's had similar experiences. Or maybe not. She's already gotten lucky to just jump into the union environment and a partnership environment. But I'm sure she's probably had some bumps in the road. And can you expand that from your perspective as a management representative working with unions?
Oh, absolutely. For me, I spent over 25 years in healthcare, and then transitioning into transit was a totally different beast. But I take those skills that I've used over the years as far as communication. We can agree to disagree, but let's talk about it. I'm all about let's get in a room, share with me your thoughts. Let me share with you where I'm coming from. And sometimes we can agree to disagree, but we are respectful. We hear everyone out before making a decision, because at the end of the day, remember I said it at the beginning of when I started speaking, we are one team. We are about the heart of the people. And a part of Indigo are our teammates here. And so on union side, the agency side, let's come together. Let's talk about it. The union president calls me on my cell phone. Miss Denise, this is an issue. And if there's an issue that is happening that my folk on my team aren't addressing, we're going to get to the bottom of it. And so I believe, again, communication is the biggest key to partnership, even if we have to agree to disagree.
Denise, excellent. And I fully agree. And it sounds so easy and basic, but it's shocking how often we don't do that. So thank you for putting that out there. So Stephen, a major component of sustaining training and education partnerships is overcoming challenges. So can you talk about some of the challenges the Education Fund faces and how you work with your counterparts to resolve them?
Sure, absolutely. So I mentioned some of these challenges before when I was addressing some of our marginalized populations. It's very hard as an individual to commit yourself to education and training if you have to worry about the cost of a ride on New York City Transit or whether you can find a babysitter for the night. So DC 37 and the City of New York recently settled negotiations on a citywide agreement for our DC 37 members. And this collective bargaining agreement actually helps overcome some of these challenges in a few ways. It introduced a dedicated hybrid, flex, and compressed work schedule as it fits the needs of specific city agencies, as well as establishing a dedicated child care fund
and providing additional assistance to offset transportation costs. Another challenge that I mentioned before is the city's civil service system requirements for competitive class positions. Passing a city exam is just step one. Candidates still need to have a current and satisfactory resume, be able to successfully interview for positions. So the Green Jobs Initiative also incorporates test-taking strategies, resume writing, and interview techniques as separate and standalone courses and workshops to increase our candidates' chances for success. We also attend and in some cases collaborate on civil service workshops offered by New York City's Department of Citywide Administrative Services, or DCAS for short, which they give to city employees, and we incorporate that information that's provided into our own exam prep courses. Another challenge that we have, or another major challenge we have, is funding. Both the training courses and the certification licensing exams associated with these courses are extremely costly. For our members to take these classes and courses on their own, it will result in hundreds, if not thousands, of out-of-pocket, costs. So fortunately for us, we were able to secure funding through New York State's Energy Research and Development Authority, or NYSERDA for short, to modify the program curricula of our training partners, deliver classroom, virtual, and hands-on training, and cover nationally recognized certification and licensing costs. Just a couple of examples are the Building Science Principles Certification that's offered through BPI, or the Building Performance Institute, or Green Professional Training Examinations, or GPRO, through the Urban Green Council. Our grant proposals were strengthened by commitment letters by specific city agencies like DCAS, New York City School Construction Authority, and our Department of Buildings, who pledged to recruit and hire graduates of our training program.
Oh, that's great stuff. Thank you, Stephen. Bob, the Labor Management Council of Greater Kansas City just celebrated its 44th anniversary, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
How have you been able to sustain success over such a long period of time? And what could those in the audience learn about how to deal with challenges along the way? Because they're going to be there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think to some extent we've been lucky. We've had some outstanding leaders, both labor and management side. In fact, two of our former co-chairs are now international union presidents. We've had current and future CEOs on the management side. So we've been fortunate to have a lot of great leadership that has really made a difference in sustaining the organization and the spirit of partnership. More specifically, to kind of paraphrase some of the other folks have been talking about, leaders have to be willing to listen to each other. That's a key part of it, understand each other. One thing we try to do is to get folks together in environments that are outside of their areas of day-to-day potential conflict. So they're talking about issues other than just the latest grievance or the contract negotiation. They're working on other projects, getting to know each other personally. So that way, they're able to build relationships, understand each other better, learn how to communicate with each other, and perhaps see the other perspective a little more easily than when they're only talking about things that they have disputes about. We've also been helped by a leadership program that was established 30 some odd years ago, mid-level leadership program. It was designed to help up-and-coming labor and management leaders develop core leadership skills and also learn more about each other, build relationships, understand the other side. And that's been a great success for us. In fact, a lot of our board leadership has come out of that program. They learn about labor management partnership and collaboration in that, and hopefully become better leaders as well. So then when they're positioned, they step into roles with Labor Management Council. So that's been a great success. Another thing I think is important is if there's conflict within each side or one side, it makes it more difficult to come together. So if you're going to try to put together a partnership, whether it's on a broader partnership or a very specific issue, it's important for each side to sort of have their ducks in a row and to have some sense of unity among themselves. That makes it much easier then to come to joint solutions when both sides kind of have their own goals clear in their own minds and what they're trying to achieve, and they're not focused on how it affects their the folks are not getting along with in their own sector. So it's important to work within each side before you get to that point, so you're really ready to work in partnership with each other.
Wow, that's a very interesting. That last point's very interesting. The conflict or dissent, especially in the trades, both on management and labor, you could see where there at times there may be some competing interests, and so
Absolutely.
to get folks together on their own side to make sure that you're unified and understand where you want to go before you go in. I think that's a fantastic tip. First time I heard that one in this type of forum. So great tip. And I could see why they call you Bad Bob and the rest of the committee. Just you really challenged me of not going down the rabbit holes, because you're bringing up excellent points. I just want to dig into each of them, but we don't have time. I wish we really did have more time. But I want to thank Acting Director Sue. She has a few things going on at the moment, but she still made this happen. And a side note, kudos to the Acting Director on her work with the West Coast ports and getting that contract done without a strike and keeping our supply chains running. That helps all of us, right, to keep those humming. So congratulations to her on that one. And I want to thank the Director of the OLMS, Director Freund. He's doing great things over there at the OLMS and like this, to focus on partnerships and also bringing Darnice on board. All of that's greatly appreciated. Darnice and Andrew, these events, although brief, take a lot of work. And I want to thank you for all the heavy lifting that you did to finally get this thing together. I know that you had been talking about doing something like this for months, and it's challenging to get everything aligned to make it happen. So kudos to you all for making it happen. And I also want to thank the panel for giving of their time and wisdom. I hope you all found this time to be beneficial. It was interesting to hear the wide applications of partnering and the benefits to many, not just labor and management, but also the broader communities. And finally, all the attendees, thank you for having the interest in partnerships and taking the time to participate today. And I hope you take advantage of the DOL resources and check out the OLMS website. And please know that FMCS is able to assist with starting your labor management partnerships or to tune up existing ones if you have them. You can call your local FMCS mediator or go to our website for assistance. And I hope you take advantage of some of the jewels that the panel has laid out for you here. But with that, Darnice, I'm going to pass it over to you to close us out.
Thanks, Javier. This has been nothing short of amazing. I have a long list of people who need to be thanked today. This is the dessert, so please do not push back from the table yet. First and foremost, please give the moderator a virtual round of applause. Mr. Ramirez, you did a wonderful job moderating the panel, and we knew you would be perfect for this job. Panel members, thank you for being willing to offer your time, expertise, and best practices so that others can see the value in the power of partnerships. Director Freund, thank you for having the vision to create this program. Your vision is what made today possible, and for that, I thank you. I would also like to thank my boss and Deputy Director of the Office of Labor Management Standards, Andrew Arbeck. We have faced many challenges as we set out to build this program within the federal government. Thank you for your support. I hope Andrew and I have made you proud. Lynn Reinhardt, thank you for your guidance as we work tirelessly to make this event possible. And as a side note, thank you for your matchmaking skills. Sorry, everyone, that's an inside joke. Andrew Hasty, thank you for lending your talents and leadership to the United States Department of Labor, the Labor Management Partnership Program, and to me. I could not have done it without you. And yes, I know I still owe you a cold brew coffee for saying nice things about me. To my OLMS family, thank you for embracing the Labor Management Partnership Program, although we don't have enforcement rights. Maybe we should write a rule on that. DOL family, thank you for prioritizing this work and allowing us to use labor management partnerships as a collaborative model to create a better future for workers and employers all across the country. My family and friends, thank you for your support and encouragement. Terrell, Andrea, and Aaron, I'm going to take some time off now that this event is complete. We deserve some quality family time. Last and certainly not least, thank you all for tuning in today and believing in the power of partnerships. After all, I think this was a great 3 courses to help you build and sustain labor management partnerships of your own. Enjoy the rest of your day and see you next time.